Solving inequalities. In this question, they wanted you to graph the solution set for the inequality. So to do that, we first need to solve. Our first step is to use the distributive property and multiply everything by 6. And we get 6x minus 12 when we distribute the 6 to everything in the parentheses. I would then go ahead and combine my like terms on the same side, and negative 12 plus 8 is negative 4. So when I simplify the right hand side, I get 6x minus 4. And then I have 2x minus 6 is greater than or equal to 6x minus 4. You have two options here. You could subtract 2x from both sides, or you could subtract 6x from both sides. I like the x to be on the left-hand side of the symbol, so I'm going to subtract 6x from both sides, making that 2x minus 6x, which is negative 4x. Bring down my minus 6, my greater than or equal to, and my minus 4. Now your next step would be to get the numbers to the other side as the x. So that means I'm going to add 6 to both sides so that I'm set up with a one-step problem where I have all the x terms on one side of the symbol and the constants on the other side of the symbol. This is going to give me the one scenario where it's different than solving an equation, because you actually have to reverse the sign of the inequality symbol. When you divide or multiply both sides of the inequality symbol by a negative, the sign reverses. And that is the most common mistake, is people that do not remember that rule. So when you multiply or divide both sides by a negative number, what you're dividing by is a negative number. That's when you reverse the inequality symbol. So now I have x is less than or equal to a positive divided by a negative is a negative, and 2 divided by 4 is 1/2, or 0.5. Now when I create my number line, I know I'm going to have negative 0.5. Would I use an open circle or a closed circle here? Well, because you have the equals to portion, it is a closed circle, and x is less than, x is all the values less than negative 0.5, so that means you would shade to the left for less than. The alternative to solving this problem the way I did would, some people might subtract 2x from both sides, and if they did that, they would get negative 6 greater than or equal to 4x minus 4, add 4 to both sides, negative 2 greater than or equal to 4x. Now notice here we are dividing by a positive, so we would not flip the symbol, but we do end up with negative 0.5 greater than or equal to x. You have to be careful writing it this way, because you're starting with negative 0.5 and describing x after you say the number. It always makes more sense when what you're graphing to say that x is either greater than or less than. Because here, the way we read this, negative 0.5 is greater than x. That means negative 0.5 is going to be to the right of all the x values. If you wanted to, at the end, flip this to x and then change the two sides, you also have to reverse the inequality symbol. So these are all equivalent ways to represent the same quantity, that x is less than or equal to negative 0.5. Another example, I'm going to use the distributive property where I have parentheses and distribute. That is 8 plus 4x is greater than or equal to 5x plus 5. So like I said before, you have options. You can just always try to get the x on the left-hand side of the equal sign, Or if you end up with an answer where the x is on the right-hand side of the symbol, then you can flip it at the end, but make sure you flip the symbol. So you have options. We'll do it both ways. I could either subtract 4x from both sides and leave me with x greater than or equal to x plus 5, or I could subtract 5x from both sides, and that would leave me with x minus 1x is greater than or equal to 5. If I were going to finish this, I would subtract 8 from both sides, leaving me with negative 1x is greater than or equal to negative 3. Divide both sides by a negative, which means I have to change the inequality symbol to point the other way, so x is greater than or equal to 3. If I were to finish this one on this side, I would leave x where it's at, subtract 5 from both sides. That would be 3 is greater than or equal to x. If 3 is greater than or equal to x, and the open part always points to the bigger number, so 3 is greater than x or equal to x, then if I want to move x to the left-hand side of the statement, the open part would still have to point to the 3, which means the symbol would have to reverse. So now you can see how solving it both ways does get you that same answer.